Imagine being completely alone in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with no land in sight, no way to call for help, and only a small life raft standing between you and death. This is the extraordinary true story of Steven Callahan, a sailor, inventor, and survivor who endured one of the most remarkable survival ordeals in modern history. For 76 days, Callahan drifted across the Atlantic Ocean after his sailboat sank. During that time, he faced starvation, dehydration, exhaustion, sharks, storms, and overwhelming isolation. Yet through ingenuity, determination, and an unbreakable will to live, he survived. Today, we will explore his incredible journey, the challenges he faced, the survival strategies that kept him alive, and the lessons his experience continues to teach us about resilience and human endurance. Before he became famous for surviving at sea, Steven Callahan was already a man deeply connected to the ocean. He was a naval architect, sailor, and builder who designed and constructed boats. His knowledge of marine engineering gave him a unique understanding of how vessels function and how to solve problems under difficult conditions. In 1981, Callahan set out on a solo voyage across the Atlantic aboard a small sailboat called the Napoleon Solo. Like many experienced sailors, he sought adventure and challenge. However, he could never have predicted that this journey would become a fight for survival. What makes Callahan's story especially remarkable is that he was not simply lucky. His technical skills, creativity, and preparation played a major role in helping him survive. The very knowledge he had gained from designing boats would soon become one of his greatest advantages. 7 days into his voyage, disaster struck. In the middle of the night, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, Callahan was awakened by a violent impact. Something had collided with his boat. To this day, the exact cause remains unknown. Some experts believe it may have been a whale, while others suggest floating debris. Whatever the cause, the result was devastating. The hull of the Napoleon Solo was severely damaged, and water began rushing into the vessel. Callahan quickly realized that his boat could not be saved. Faced with a life or death emergency, he had only minutes to act. Every decision mattered. There was no rescue team nearby, and no guarantee anyone even knew he was in danger. The peaceful voyage had instantly transformed into a survival crisis. Knowing his sailboat was sinking, Callahan focused on one critical objective: save whatever could help him survive. Working against time, he gathered essential supplies before abandoning the vessel. These included a spear gun for catching fish, solar stills for producing fresh water, survival manuals, emergency food rations, flares, and other equipment. Each item represented a chance to stay alive. Every piece of gear would later prove valuable during his ordeal. Soon, Callahan climbed into a small inflatable life raft and watched as the Napoleon Solo disappeared beneath the ocean surface. Everything he owned was gone. Now alone in a tiny raft surrounded by thousands of miles of open water, he entered a new reality. Survival would depend entirely on his resourcefulness and determination. Steven Callahan spent the next 76 days drifting across the Atlantic Ocean. During this journey, he traveled approximately 1,800 nautical miles while living in a life raft barely 6 feet wide. For more than 2 months, he had no control over where he was going. Ocean currents and winds dictated his path. Imagine the psychological challenge of waking up every day to the exact same horizon: no roads, no landmarks, and no certainty that rescue would ever come. The ocean offered no shelter and no companionship. Every sunrise represented another day of survival, while every sunset reminded him that he was still alone. The vastness of the sea became both his prison and his pathway to salvation. To stay alive, Callahan transformed himself into what he later described as an aquatic caveman. Food was a constant challenge. Using his spear gun and handmade fishing techniques, he caught fish and other marine life. These catches became his primary source of nutrition. Freshwater was even more critical. Human beings can survive weeks without food, but only a few days without water. Fortunately, Callahan had salvaged solar stills devices that used sunlight to convert seawater into drinkable. He also developed an intimate understanding of the marine environment around him. He observed fish behavior, weather patterns, and ocean conditions, adapting constantly to improve his chances of survival. His ability to innovate and work with the limited resources available became one of the key reasons he survived. Physical hardship was only part of the struggle. The psychological battle was equally intense. Callahan later described his experience as a seat in hell. Day after day, he endured loneliness, uncertainty, fear, and exhaustion. There was no guarantee he would ever see another person again. To maintain hope, he established routines and focused on immediate tasks rather than overwhelming fears about the future. Instead of worrying about surviving for months, he concentrated on catching the next fish, collecting the next batch of water, or repairing the raft. He also kept records and observations, which helped maintain a sense of purpose and control. This mental discipline proved just as important as food and water. Survival often depends not only on the body, but also on the mind. The dangers surrounding Callahan were constant. Sharks frequently circled beneath his raft. Although they did not attack him directly, their presence was a constant reminder of the ocean's power and unpredictability. Another threat came from punctures and damage to the inflatable raft itself. Shark fish, marine creatures, and ordinary wear and tear could create leaks that threatened his only shelter. Callahan spent countless hours inspecting, repairing, and protecting the raft. A single major puncture could have been fatal. Meanwhile, ships occasionally passed in the distance. Despite seeing several vessels, none noticed the tiny life raft. Each missed opportunity for rescue brought crushing disappointment, yet he refused to give up. After more than 2 months at sea, Callahan noticed a hopeful sign. Birds began appearing overhead. For sailors, birds often indicate that land is nearby because many species do not travel far from shore. For the first time in weeks, Callahan sensed that rescue might finally be possible. The appearance of birds suggested he was approaching inhabited waters. Soon afterward, fishermen noticed his life raft. After 76 days alone at sea, Steven Callahan was finally rescued. The moment marked the end of one of the longest and most extraordinary solo survival experiences ever documented. Against overwhelming odds, he had survived. Steven Callahan's story did not end with his rescue. He later wrote the best-selling book, Adrift 76 Days Lost at Sea, which became a classic survival memoir and inspired readers around the world. His experiences also influenced survival training, maritime safety practices, and emergency preparedness. His story demonstrates the power of resilience, adaptability, knowledge, and hope. Faced with seemingly impossible circumstances, Callahan survived not because he was fearless, but because he continued to act despite fear. Today, his journey remains a powerful reminder that human beings are capable of extraordinary endurance when challenged by adversity. As we reflect on Steven Callahan's 76 days at sea, we are left with a timeless lesson. Survival often depends on determination, creativity, and the refusal to surrender, even when the odds appear impossible. Thank you